started. The Arizona Cardinals are on the clock.
And this is where we crash the party. Welcome in, everyone. It is the Arizona Cardinals Draft Connection, our digital draft show. From our home to yours, Red Sea. We're coming at you here. Tick tock. The Cardinals are on the clock. And we've got quite a lineup tonight. Paul Calvisi here at Casa Calvisi, sheltering at home. Dave Pasch, voice of the Cardinals for nearly 2 decades. Dave, enough with the mock drafts. It is go time right now.
Man, it feels good just to be on the air, Paulie. The last time I was in front of a camera, I was getting ready to do the Pelicans-Kings game on March 11th. It got postponed, and so did everything else. So it's just good to see you here, live on TV.
All right. And nobody's had quite the offseason as our extra special guest, our plus-size guest here, your franchise left tackle and former first-round pick, DJ Humphries, joins us here on the Arizona Cardinals Draft Connection, brought to you by Arizona Ford Dealers. So, DJ, let's see your offseason. You got married and you got paid. Not bad.
Yeah. It's been a fun one for me. I don't know what next year got to show me.
DJ, what would you like to see
us.
the Cardinals do here? What would you like to see the Cardinals do? They're on the clock. They're going to make a pick. Would you rather see them go defense or give you and that offense another weapon or more protection for Kyler?
I always love the weapons. I love the weapons because I love one-play touchdowns. So I'm all about the weapons. I'm all about the deep threats. But I really like the kid from Clemson. I can't remember his name off the top of my head.
Isiah Simmons.
Yes, Isiah Simmons. I don't blank on his name just now. I like that kid a lot, and I can't believe that he's available at pick number 8. So I like him a lot, but he's also a South Carolina kid, so I'm showing a little favoritism there. So.
And guess what, DJ? Good news. You guys are going to have a lot in common because Isiah Simmons is the Cardinals pick, number 8 overall. How about that?
Saw that? That's wow.
We are talking 6'4", 240, Isiah Simmons, a guy who plays at all 3 levels of the defense. You see him here, an All-American at Clemson. A year ago, he had 104 tackles. He had a 16.5 tackles for loss. He had 8 sacks. He had 3 picks. And Dave, I know you've had some firsthand experience with Isiah Simmons.
We had him twice last year, Paulie. We had him against North Carolina, a game they almost lost. And then we had them against South Carolina, and he absolutely dominated in that game at the end of the regular season against the Gamecocks. Just his versatility, Paulie and DJ, the number of positions he can play, the different things that Vance will be able to do with him, line him up at defensive end. You could line him up against a tight end, and I'm sure there'll be times he's matched up against a wide receiver. I mean, he's that athletic and talented. The one thing that people said about him and wondered about him was, is he physical enough? And to me, I'd rather have a guy that's got athletic ability that can cover anybody and play in space, and I'll worry about the physicality part once he gets here.
Yeah, that's something.
DJ Humphries, give us your reaction. Isiah Simmons.
Oh man, that's crazy. I feel like I just called that. I feel like I just spoke that into existence just that quick. But it's crazy that's something that I saw on film too. Is he wants to be physical. He wants to be tough. He wants to be a freak on the field, and that was something that I admired about watching him play. He's such a really good athlete, and I think that's something that everyone knows about him. But I think he tries to make a point of being tough when he can be in the places that he can shine and be tough in those moments. And that's something that I'm intrigued by, because a young guy that who has the world of talent, and this is the only thing that you could say about me. Just from watching him play, I could tell his mentality is let me prove you wrong. So I'm really eager to get that guy in the building. That's exciting. Like I said, I feel like I just called that just now. I feel like I just did that with my mind.
You're right. Spoke it into existence. That's right. So, DJ, you heard Dave talk about his versatility, where he can rush off the edge. He's played slot corner. He's played weak inside linebacker. He's been a safety. The fact he's such an X factor with that kind of versatility, what does that mean for an offense when you have to go against that sort of defender?
I think the thing that it means for offense when you got to go against a defender like is when you're in a setting with a defensive coordinator, when your defensive coordinator knows how to put players in a position to play to their best, it lets a kid like that who's young, he could just come in and whichever one he plays, you know what I mean? He has that type of talent that whichever he's best at, you can play him. And, you know, and it takes a lot of that uncertainty out for someone who's playing. Speaking from a player's perspective, if I know what I'm doing and this is something that I'm the best at, I can let it rip and I can be the athlete that everyone knows that I am. You know what I mean? So that's really exciting when you got a player like that you can really just see which one he excels better at the next level and let him plug and play.
Paul, I thought that Isiah Simmons coming into the draft was the second best defensive player behind Chase Young. In fact, I thought Chase Young should have been the number one pick in the draft. I think he's the best player. But the fact that Isiah Simmons, who a lot of people felt like I did, that he was right behind Chase Young, that he drops to number 8, I think the Cardinals got to feel fortunate. The fact that Justin Herbert was picked by the Chargers, I think that opened up the door. And then you knew it was going to be either Derek Brown or Simmons. It all came down to who Carolina chose, and I was pretty comfortable either way. And I think once Isiah gets here, Vance Joseph will be as well.
That's the same thing I was saying. I once I saw him go past LA, I was thinking like, man, they got Derwin James. They got a similar player in that style. So once I saw him go past LA, I was like, oh my goodness, either it's both of the two top defensive picks that we could want are going to be there, whether it's Isiah or Brown. So that's man. Like I said, I'm feeling real smart. I feel like my IQ just went up like 50 points. Like I did this. You're welcome, guys. I'm glad that y'all were here to witness this. The war room is right here. This is the war room, guys. Right here.
So DJ, educate then the national mock draft guys who virtually almost all of them from a national perspective had the Cardinals going O-line at number 8. They're all wrong at this very moment. Why isn't it not nearly the urgent or pressing need as the national media seems to think?
I think it's a different feeling when you honestly, I think it's just because Marcus didn't play last year. I think if everyone would have gotten to see our unit together as a whole, it would have been a different feeling. It would have been more of a feeling of optimism and eagerness to get that back together, like what we saw in the building, and the reason why Marcus is coming back and Justin Murray is coming back, because everybody saw that those guys are a valuable part of our unit. Justin Murray got threw in the fire and didn't bat an eyelash, and I've never seen anyone react in a situation like that. And Marcus Gilbert made an immediate impact in our room as soon as he came in as a vet. So those guys like that, if you're in the building, you know what's going on. But it's another one of those things. It's just kind of like it's okay. Like we'll just let it work out, and we'll laugh about it in a few years.
So Dave, you see some of the reactions at the bottom of the screen via Twitter. You saw Patrick Peterson was all fired up. Budda Baker is all fired up. What do you think this does for the Cardinals defense? And let's be honest, a year ago, they had a major issue covering the tight end. And not only can Isiah Simmons cover the tight end, I mean, he's been a slot corner for Pete's sake at 6'4", nearly 240 pounds.
It makes the defense a heck of a lot faster. And this day and age in the NFL, it's all about speed and how you play in space defensively. And Isiah Simmons, that's where he excels. And so you add him to a group that already has elite talent and Chandler Jones and Patrick Peterson, ascending players like Budda Baker, some solid free agency signings. I'm curious to see Byron Murphy, what he does from year 1 to year 2. And now you add Isiah Simmons, a guy that has just incredible athletic ability. I think the Cardinals, we expected them to be much improved offensively from year 1 to year 2. I think the defense took a big step tonight as well.
All right, so DJ, as we wrap it up, A, thanks again for speaking it into existence, all right? And B, considering that Isiah Simmons is known to rush off the edge, you might not just be going against Chandler Jones in training camp. You might have some one-on-ones against the rookie.
Thank God. I'm tired of going against Chandler every day. Jeez, can we get it? Can we get like a buffer in there somewhere? Like, geez, like it's cool for the first like 3 times, and after that, it's like, dude, like I get it, bro. You're the best in the world. I understand, bro. Jeez. No, it's gonna be
All
fun.
right,
I'm
DJ,
excited.
thank you. Yeah, no, that's great. That is great. We appreciate the insight there. And you know what? We also appreciate today's sponsor, the Arizona Ford dealers, for lending a hand. It's not just built Ford tough, built Ford proud. It's built to lend a hand. And the latest example, St. Mary's Food Bank in Phoenix, our Arizona Ford dealers partnering with Ford's Operation Better World to provide a $50,000 donation. How about that? $50,000 donation for emergency food boxes. So this donation alone is going to provide up to 350,000 meals for those in need during the COVID-19 crisis. Ford, once again, built to lend a hand. So there you go, Dave. You didn't think in particular that Justin Herbert would go before the Cardinals, but he did, and that was key, obviously. And then the Giants going offensive tackle at 4 made for another defensive playmaker to fall to the Cardinals. That's exactly what happened in Isiah Simmons. And let's get the reaction from our Cardinals insider, Darren Urban, and your initial thoughts on Isiah Simmons becoming a Cardinal.
Well, Paul, I mean, we've talked a million times. Obviously, this was a guy that personally I was hoping might fall to the Cardinals and would be something that they could add to this defense. So I don't think there's any question that from a personal view, this couldn't have worked out any better for the Cardinals. I mean, I know everybody talked about an offensive lineman. I know people wondered even about a wide receiver, but I think defensively to get another playmaker, knowing what they added on the offense already with DeAndre Hopkins this offseason, I think this is a great move.
I think you look at the value, guys, right? I mean, Isiah Simmons, again, a player that a lot of people probably on their draft boards had much, much higher. And Paul, you mentioned I was not buying the Herbert to Dolphins hype, and I actually didn't think he'd go in the top 10. I thought he would certainly be there when the Cardinals picked, and that maybe the Cardinals would be able to trade back. So when the Dolphins took Tua, it was all about what the Chargers did. And then the fact that they took Herbert leaves 2 players on the board for Carolina who are guys that are going to be instant impact players. So the fact that Carolina took Derek Brown, the Cardinals get Isiah Simmons, I think we're going to see a lot of Isiah Simmons on the field in the fall here, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean,
how do you think that positional Darren translates to the NFL? I mean, can he realistically be that versatile in the NFL?
Well, I mean, maybe not quite as versatile but obviously athletic talent is going to shine that much more on the college level when you have the talent discrepancy that you might have from game to game. But I do think you can use them in different places. I mean, when I think of Isiah Simmons and I think of the possibilities of what they can do, I mean, first of all, I loved at the combine when he got up there and people were talking about, not knowing one position. He was like, look, I'm a defender. And I know that people have questions about whether I can play positions, but you need to understand that I study all this stuff. I believe I can do various roles. And one of the things I really loved at the combine when he talked about was like, he's like, Kelsey's out there and Kittle's out there in the NFL. You need to cover tight ends these days. And, as somebody who watched the Cardinals this year, obviously that was a quote that caught my attention. This is a guy who believes he can cover these tight ends. Maybe once in a while he can help out in the slot. He can blitz. He can maybe play a little safety once in a while. I know that probably isn't going to be his best spot, but again, this gives Vance Joseph this ability to put him in so many different places, and that's going to put some pressure on these offenses not knowing where Isiah Simmons might be. And the thing I love about that in a lot of ways is you can sub guys in and out. I know they're going to have to find a place ultimately to put him as a starter, but you can put him in different spots and take guys out and have all these looks. I mean, that's just a puzzle piece that I would think a defensive coordinator would love.
I would think, and we talked about this at Cardinals Underground a little bit, Darren, about how the fact that Devondre Campbell was a 1-year contract signee, whereas the other free agents were all 3 years, were longer-term contracts. It was sort of conspicuous by the short-term nature of that contract. And so if we're looking for an eventual spot, Dave, I'm wondering if that inside linebacker spot next to Jordan Hicks might be the home for a guy who can truly go sideline to sideline, obviously, at inside linebacker.
Better to have more, Paulie, than none. There have been a lot of Cardinal teams recently where you were just hoping to find one guy at inside linebacker that could be a game changer. And now with what we saw from Hicks last year, the addition of Campbell for this year anyway, and now Isiah Simmons coming into the fold, we'll see what happens with Hassan Reddick and what his future holds, and if he's on the Cardinals, what position he plays. But at least you have some options now. And I think, again, because of the way the league is going now, where you see so many spread offenses, 4 wide receivers, or a tight end that basically acts as a wide receiver, you need to have guys on the field that can cover. And Isiah Simmons can do that. And that is an asset that, the Cardinals haven't had at that position in a while, since Darrell Washington probably.
Yeah, I think of Darrell Washington. I think of Adrian Wilson in the regard that not only the size, obviously Isiah Simmons is heavier, Darren, but just that X factor. Remember back in the day when you'd have quarterbacks say when they play the Cardinals in the days leading up to game day, they would say, you know what, I break the huddle. The first thing I look for is 24. Where's Adrian Wilson? Where is he? Cardinals would deploy him all over the defense. And that sort of is what I envision with an Isiah Simmons is where is he going to be and how is the offense going to account for him?
I don't think there's any question that, again, talking about where Isiah Simmons can play and what he can do, there might be a little heavier load on the defensive staff and Vance Joseph, making sure that he's in the right spots to shine. But again, he gives you a lot of flexibility. And I go back, Dave mentioning Darrell Washington. I think that's a great point. I mean, this is a team that's been looking for that rangy inside linebacker for a while. They were hoping Hassan Reddick would be that guy. He didn't really translate, so they're going to give another shot to this. But they want to have that guy, and I know some people wonder, is he the most physical player? I know Dave, you mentioned that. He might not be at this point, but I think he gives you other parts of the game that you desperately need. And again, I just think this is going to end up being a really good pick for this team.
All right, Darren, I tell you what, why don't you stay on the line here, and we'll continue at Cardinals Draft Connection, our digital draft special. And we continue to roll on here and break down the Cardinals selection of Isiah Simmons. How about a quick word about the Cardinals carryout program, by the way? I mean, 2 thumbs up. And really, this is twofold in so many ways. You support locally owned restaurants, and then the Cardinals deliver those meals to our healthcare heroes and first responders. All you have to do is click azcardinals.com/Cardinals carryout. You can check out, you got to search it out, the interactive statewide map. Very cool. We've done it several times already at Casa Calvisi. You see local restaurants that are offering carryout service, right? Then the Cardinals select establishments from the map each day. You have purchases, and then they deliver those meals once again to our heroes on the front lines, the medical personnel, the first responders. Again, azcardinals.com/Cardinals carryout. All right, one of the great things about Cardinals Draft Connection here is our ability to go into the war room and talk to the decision makers. And no further ado, let's bring in team owner Michael Bidwill. And Michael, first off, Cardinals carryout. What's been your go-to? What's been your go-to recently when it comes to ordering out? All right, we might have an audio issue right there. I'll tell you what, we're going to try and dial that in, and then we'll get back to the Cardinals team. And it was very interesting. We didn't mention the virtual nature of this draft. Obviously, anybody who was unaware, Dave, you realize right off the top of the NFL Network broadcast, there's Roger Goodell in his basement conducting all the picks. And then we've seen all the Cardinals decision makers in their various homes and at separate locations. And there was a lot of speculation that there would be a lot of trades. But then the counter to that, Dave, was that it would just be very difficult, the degree of difficulty involved. And sure enough, we didn't see any trades before the Cardinals. They didn't have to worry about that.
First of all, not to make light of our situation with the stay-at-home, but if I'm ever in a position where I have to be quarantined again, I want it to be in Cliff Kingsbury's house. If you saw the tweet on azcardinals.com of Cliff sitting on his couch with the beautiful background, I'm assuming eating Scottsdale or PV. But anyway, I'm a little surprised, Paul, that we didn't see any trades. And I guess that just goes back to you don't know who to believe and what to believe leading up to the draft. everybody said, oh, the Dolphins are having second thoughts about Tua. They're concerned. They may have a chance to draft Tua with their other pick in the first round. It's interesting also that, former Cardinal quarterback Josh Rosen, who 2 years ago was on the stage in the first round, was drafted by the Cardinals. He gets traded after the Cards select Murray, and he's looking at an uphill climb to be on the Dolphins roster in 2020. He may be somewhere else next year. So it's just interesting how quickly things can change in this league now, even at that position where 15, 20 years ago when you took a quarterback, he was on your roster for at least 5 years because you're paying him such big money. But the rules have changed completely, and it's really interesting to see how that's all played out now.
It's a great piece in the Players Tribune released today. Kyler Murray talking in the first person and writing about his draft experience a year ago. And there's some great anecdotal material in there. And I'm sure he had a pretty good idea he was going to the Cardinals #1 overall. But he told a great story about how his mom grabbed his arm when the Cardinals were on the clock and said, "Breathe, son. You got to remember to breathe." And just how nervous he was and how meaningful it is. And his advice to those getting selected this year was, remember the entire journey, not just today and draft day, but remember all those hours and all those people who helped you get to this moment. And just the magnitude of it, I thought it was very well done by Kyler Murray in the first person of the Players Tribune today. All right, with that said, let's tell you what, we're going to go out to, once again, remote, and we're going to go to the guy who made the pick, Cardinals GM Steve Keim, and he joins us now on Cardinals Draft Connection. Steve, congratulations on Isiah Simmons. Just give us an initial word here on our digital draft special.
Excited. Very excited. Can you guys hear me?
We got you. We got you, Keimer.
We got
you. Yeah, I said the one word I could say is wow.
Did
20,
you?
20, I believe this is my 22nd draft. 22nd draft. And I try to think back and as an evaluator, a lot of times what you'll do is you'll take a snapshot of the players that you've looked at over the years, and you try to make comparisons, and this is one of the most unique players I've ever evaluated. The size, the length, the athleticism, the coverability in space for a guy who essentially is 6'4", 238 pounds. He ran 4.34 at the combine. He had 100 tackles. He had 8 sacks. He plays the deep middle, the deep half. He plays in the box. He blitzes. There's very little this guy can't do. So, we vowed to fix this defense to make sure that we got playmakers, guys who could cover ground, guys who could run. And to me, to be able to add a player with this guy's capabilities is very exciting for us.
Steve, to me, this was like the perfect scenario, seeing Isiah Simmons, a guy that I'm sure you had higher than number 8, and I know a lot of other teams did as well, to be there where you picked. What was going through your mind at picks 5 and 6 when the Dolphins and then the Chargers took quarterbacks, and you had an inkling that maybe Simmons would be there?
Again, just that nervous anticipation you get that is sort of hard to duplicate, and it's an exciting part of the job. It's there's nothing that replicates being a player and walking out of the tunnel, but I can tell you, going through about 4 or 5 picks, waiting to draft a player like Isiah Simmons, that gets pretty close. Just the heart rate, the excitement, and to be able to know that we secured a player that, again, like you said, Dave, we had much higher on our board, to me really is just kind of goes back to that whole 120 board process that we have, and stacking the players and trusting your board, not worrying about drafting for need. And when you're in a position like that and you have the 8th pick, take the best player available. And I feel like that's what we did tonight.
Tell us about Isiah Simmons, the person, and your opportunities to visit with him. I've heard it said that the more maturity, the more NFL ready they are to be plug and play, and especially in an abbreviated offseason like this. We're curious. I mean, is he a guy you envision getting snaps day one?
I do. He's got a unique story. I mean, I spend a lot of time with Dabo Sweeney when they were in town for the Fiesta Bowl. And I went and watched them practice at ASU for a day. And fortunate enough, my college football coach, my offensive line coach, Robbie Caldwell, is a line coach at Clemson. So I feel like I had great intel on the player and a lot of information from that program. And the thing that really excites me is, the character and the player match. The guy has got phenomenal talent, but he's a great character kid, extremely smart. The things that they ask him to do on defense, Paul and Dave, they ask him to do so many different things. One day he's in the safety room, one day he's in the linebacker room. And Coach Venables has asked him to do so much schematically. Guys got to be really sharp to be able to process that quickly, to be able to learn and take it to the field. And then you watch him in the different games, especially you watch him like against LSU in the national championship. And you see his cover ability in space, and they walk him out on a receiver in the slot. And again, we're walking him out onto a receiver in the slot at 6'4", 240 pounds. That's not a usual thing that you see in players that size. So, when you take all those things into account, and then the story's really cool because Dabo was telling me that he was a kid that was not highly recruited. And they lost a couple players that left early to go to the NFL draft. And I think it was like 2 weeks before signing date, Brent Venables found him through a high school coach that's a friend. So obviously it's kind of unusual for a kid to go from Kansas to Clemson, South Carolina. So for them to find him last minute and to be able to take advantage of that, and he's like your 25th player out of 25 recruits, and the next thing you know, he comes in and he's a top 10 pick in the NFL. Just goes to show you the type of character, the work ethic. Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good.
So, Steve, what's next? Because you guys don't pick now until the third round. Are you trying to wheel and deal and draft prior to that next selection that you guys have in the third?
We may. I think it's one of those things, Dave, that you look at the board and you trust it. And if there's an opportunity to move up where there's a player that we covet, like the year we drafted Budda Baker, we went up high in the second round. I'm not sure how likely that'll be, but we will certainly keep our options open.
So, Steve, speaking of wheeling and dealing, when you were on the clock at 8, can we ask, did you get any phone calls, anything that gave you a pause? Or you seriously considered about trading out at all?
No, there was like any draft. I think what you do when you look at your board is there's anywhere from 4 to 5 players that you like enough that you wouldn't consider trading under most circumstances. I mean, obviously, I got a couple calls like any draft, but nothing that would certainly make me pass on the opportunity to draft a dynamic playmaker like this.
What has been the most challenging part, Steve, of this whole virtual offseason where you're trying to put together a team and you can't watch them, you can't meet with them in person? It's such a unique time, obviously, in our world. What's been the most challenging aspect of that for you and your staff?
Well, the one thing I try to do, Dave, is I try to look at the positives in things. And I've taken, a lot of the experience that I've learned from this, whether it's the use of technology or how I've sort of structured my time and what I've delegated. And this draft, probably more than any in recent years, I've been able to watch more film, been able to get more time to study these prospects. So there have been some things that I'll take away from this experience and really apply to what we do moving forward. But, the challenges are like anything else. There's sometimes technology isn't always the best form of communication. Some of the virtual meetings we had issues with, but for the most part, I think it ran all pretty smoothly. And I think that we were able to have really, strong draft meetings that, really incorporated all of our scouts, our coaches, and we really didn't miss a beat, I don't think. So, and again, that's a testament to our coaching staff, our great scouting staff who does a fantastic job, and all of our IT department.
My last question, I got to go back to Isiah Simmons. I mean, when you consider he has nicknames like Unicorn and Alien, I mean, you tell me, this is a guy you could put as a spy on Russell Wilson? This is a guy you could put on George Kittle. to match up with him. What do you think fans are going to notice first about Isiah Simmons when this season gets rolling?
I just think it's like one of those things when you watch him, you don't realize how big he is until you see him in person. And then you see how fast he covers ground. And essentially, to me, is what you call an eraser. He's a guy that can play in the middle of the field, and he just erases things. I tried to think over the years a comp that I could use, somebody that he reminded me of. And really, the only guy that I thought you could point to with some similarities is a guy like Brian Urlacher when he came out. Brian was a safety for the most part at New Mexico. He's a little bit shorter than Isiah. He was about the same weight coming out. Not quite as fast as Simmons, but a guy that became a great player and made that that ascension to playing more in the box than he did in the deep half at New Mexico. So he was the one guy that I sort of point to say, if there's any kind of comp or somebody that you can make a projection, it'd be Brian Urlacher.
How much better, Steve, do you feel about your defense?
Sorry, Dave,
how much
go
better
ahead.
do you feel about your defense today than you did 4 months ago?
Well, I told Vance if we can't cover any tight ends this year, it's on him.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. All right, Steve, thank you. Congratulations on nabbing Isiah Simmons at number 8 overall.
Thanks, man.
There you go, the general manager. And guess what? We are now going to get our first conversation with the newest Arizona Cardinal. Isiah Simmons is going to join us. Here we go. Welcome and congratulations, Isiah. Take us through the moment and your emotions here over the last half hour.
I don't hear him.
Yeah, I think they're efforting the audio here, Dave. So we'll see if we can get clear up the connection with Isiah Simmons. We apologize for that. Looks great, just haven't been able to get any audio yet with Isiah. And you heard what Steve Keim had to say there, Dave. That's pretty high praise. A comp of a Brian Urlacher, and then a guy you can put right in the middle of the field, a guy that the personnel evaluators consider an eraser, quote unquote, someone who can erase that whole middle of the field and has the ability to stay on the field every single down. And you can put in so many different matchups and becomes that X factor where offenses have to account for him. Remember Matt Hasselbeck when the Seahawks used to play the Cardinals some 10 years ago, and when Adrian Wilson was going to 5 consecutive Pro Bowls, and he said he would break the huddle, the first thing he would do is look for Adrian Wilson. Where is he now? Is he playing a traditional strong safety? Is he mugging the A-gap? Is he going to come off the edge on a safety blitz? And so there's a lot of the same dynamics at play right now. You got to figure with Isiah Simmons. And after a Cardinals defense that, as Steve Keim said, they needed to address a couple issues, and they checked some boxes in free agency, no doubt about it, with Jordan Phillips and Devon Kennard and Devondre Campbell. But remember, Campbell is on that 1-year contract. And so if you're looking for an eventual home for Isiah Simmons, you got to figure that weak side inside linebacker spot is a likely position for a guy who can most definitely go sideline to sideline. So there you go, Isiah Simmons, the Cardinals pick at number 8 overall. And you heard the reaction of Steve Keim, who mentioned also just about how elated they were and how far Simmons fell and how much higher they had him rated in the draft. But once again, you have the quarterback factor, and with 3 quarterbacks going in front of the Cardinals, including Justin Herbert, which even Daniel Jeremiah, NFL Network this morning, had Herbert falling all the way to 18. Well, no, he goes to San Diego, goes to the LA Chargers at 6. And so that left Derek Brown or Isiah Simmons. And now you slide Isiah Simmons into that Cardinals defense. And that is going to be, I tell you, you look for difference makers. You look for playmakers. And
before, there were things we took for granted. Times have changed. Football will be more than a game. High fives, touchdowns, hugs. These are the things we'll cherish. We've stayed together, Red Sea. Soon it will be time to come together.
As we all adjust to the challenge we're facing with this virus, I'm reminded what a strong nation we are, filled with good-hearted people. Prayers for all who are impacted by this virus. Please stay strong, stay safe, and rise up, Red Sea.
There are moments we treasure, like the euphoria of a championship, the wonder of an individual performance, or the excitement of a young star's rise. Perhaps the most inspiring moment has yet to come, when we share football once again. We're all Cardinals, and the next moment will be one to remember.
All right, back with you, Paul Calvisi, voice of the Arizona Cardinals, Dave Pasch. Dave, give me a few takeaways from our discussion there with Steve Keim. You could see it on his face, the utter elation of nabbing Isiah Simmons at number 8.
I think, first of all, Paul, he was truly surprised that Isiah Simmons was there. Hopeful, but surprised. He admitted, he didn't say exactly where he had him on the board, but he admitted he had him higher than number 8. And I think there were a lot of people that did. And I wouldn't be surprised if he had him as the second best defender behind Chase Young. So the fact that you get a player at number 8 that you didn't think would be there, there's no reason to even think about trading down. I know that was a lot of conversation over the last few weeks with the Cardinals trade down to try to accumulate a second-round pick. But when you have a player that's elite, that you value that much, that you feel is a sure thing, you pull the trigger and you take him, and you don't worry about that second-round pick. You pick the best player, and I think that's what the Cardinals did.
It was interesting to hear Steve Keim use the word eraser, that the personnel guys consider him an eraser. He'll erase the middle of the field. A guy who doesn't have to leave the field. He is truly a 3-down player. You can keep him out there. You can use him in so many different roles. And then the comp of Brian Urlacher, a bigger, taller Brian Urlacher, and we know Urlacher coming out, his gift was speed and being able to go sideline to sideline. And that, to me, it makes for a lot of intriguing options where the Arizona Cardinals on defense. As we go out to the line and we bring in the team owner, Michael Bidwill. And Michael, you give us your initial reaction to drafting Isiah Simmons, number 8 overall.
Well, Steve and I have been talking about Isiah Simmons for a few weeks, and it was his hope that a number of players would be offensive players would be taken, and that we'd have a shot at Isiah, and we couldn't be happier with getting Isiah. He is a Swiss Army knife. You guys have described him. He is an eraser. He's sideline to sideline. He can cover wide receivers in the slot. He can cover tight ends. We've had a lot of problems with tight ends over the years, and he just is a huge boost to our defense.
Michael, I asked Steve this question. What was it like for you when it was picks 5 and 6, and you weren't sure who the Dolphins and Chargers were going to take, and you were hoping that Isiah would still be available for you guys at 8?
Well, we knew that some good players are going to get pushed our way, and there was Steve and I were having a couple conversations back and forth on the phone, and he felt pretty comfortable that we were going to stay at that point. So it was exciting that a chance to really improve our defense and get a player who's just incredibly special and high character. As Steve said earlier, he's got a lot of personal connections to Clemson, and we've got a lot of great feedback on Isiah and his high character.
Tell us about some of your interactions with the person, Isiah Simmons, FaceTime, interviews at the Combine, perhaps. What were your takeaways from meeting the person, Isiah Simmons?
Great kid. Obviously, we didn't get to do as much as we would have in a normal year, where we would have invited some of the top prospects, including Isiah was on our list to invite into Arizona, get a chance to spend a little bit more time. But the limited amount of time I got to spend with him, he was very impressive, and I'm excited he's a Cardinal. This was a best-case scenario for us, and it certainly worked out.
Michael, with this pick here with Isiah Simmons, and obviously you guys have several more draft picks to go, but how much better do you feel about the Cardinals defensively today with the moves that you guys have made through free agency and now the drafting of Isiah Simmons? How much better do you feel about the defense today than you did in December, maybe?
A whole lot better. Obviously, free agency was huge for us to pick up 3 great players, but then to bring Isiah Simmons in, this really dramatically improves defense. And we knew that we needed to work on the defensive side of the ball. We spent a lot of draft choices last year on offensive side of the ball. So this is exciting to really get the team balanced from a talent standpoint. There's still a lot of the draft to go. We know there are going to be some great players to get pushed down into the third and even lower rounds. And so we think there are going to be some great players there. So the way we've built our board, I really like our chances to pick up some great talent.
Once again, the national mock draft guys were all dead wrong, Michael. Most of them had the Cardinals going offensive line, and then the past few days, the Cardinals trading down. So they were 0 for a big 2 on that one.
Right. It's always amusing to see what all the experts have to say about what we're going to do and, what other teams are going to do. So, this worked out great for us. It's fabulous to add such a high quality person, fantastic football player that helps us shut down all those tight ends that have given us fits and just, their offensive coordinators in NFC West that were absolutely dreading this pick by Arizona. So, for us to have a player like this, he's going to cause fits for a lot of offensive coordinators.
Michael, thank you. Congratulations. And we appreciate the insight and you taking us inside the war room for a few minutes.
Thanks so much, guys. Appreciate it. And sorry about the connection problems here.
There you go. The team owner, Michael Bidwill. No, I mean, hey, look, we got a degree of difficulty here, but to pull this off, Dave, special thanks to Tim Delaney and Tim Beach and Mike Connor and Richard Stockton and everyone pulling. What we're navigating here in truly a first of its kind type virtual broadcast during a year with a virtual draft, and to tie everything together and bring in the insight and expertise of the guests we've had today. It's truly phenomenal how everyone was able to do this on short notice, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's probably going to be the most memorable NFL draft in history alone because of the uniqueness of everybody being in their homes. Hopefully it will be the most memorable draft for the Cardinals because they took a franchise player on the defensive side 1 year after taking their franchise quarterback in Kyler Murray. It'd be cool to look back at 2019 and 2020, maybe in 2028 and say that was the time when the Cardinals Super Bowl team was built with those first-round picks in Kyler Murray and Isiah Simmons on each side of the ball.
I don't want to get over my skis here, but last year, Kyler Murray, your offensive rookie of the year, and when you look at Isiah Simmons, the ability to rack up stats and numbers, to be a playmaker and a difference maker, a guy who had over 100 tackles, 16.5 tackles for loss, he had 8 sacks, he had 3 picks. At every level of the defense, he was able to make an impact. I can't wait, Dave. Thanks for joining us here today. We appreciate it.
My pleasure, Paul. Good seeing you.
All right, I tell you what, a reminder, by the way, if you want to see Kyler and company, right? Hashtag there will be points, azcardinals.com/tickets. You can hit that up. And then azcardinals.com obviously is your source for all the Cardinals coverage throughout the draft, rounds 2 and 3 tomorrow, rounds 4 through 7 on Saturday. But before we close tonight, we want to leave you with a special message from Larry Legend himself. Stay safe, stay healthy, everyone.
As we all adjust to the challenge we're facing with this virus, I'm reminded what a strong nation we are, filled with good-hearted people. Prayers for all who are impacted by this virus. Please stay strong, stay safe, and rise up, Red Sea.